Well, welcome to Risk Profile. I'm pretty excited. We've got a little bit of a different surprise for all of our listeners to this morning. I've got my wife to my left, my partner in Cloudbreak, and interviewing us today is somebody that knows us pretty well. And John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, John Simmons. I'm here to talk with Lauren Bahorich and secondary it would be Mark to kind of help kind of bring to light and show us what Lauren's been working on at Cloudbreak, and really excited to get this interview going.
Absolutely, it's been a long time in the making. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to hear about all of the long time in the making stuff that's been happening with Cloudbreak. So, first of all, Lauren, you're the founder and CEO of Cloudbreak Enterprises. It's a venture studio, which from venture capital can encompass a lot of different things. What is different about Cloudbreak as opposed to other venture studios? And then how do you differentiate yourself from other ones?
Absolutely. Cloudbreak is a venture studio, like you mentioned. We're the first and only venture studio in Houston. So we are a part of the VC pipeline, but we put ourselves at the very beginning of it, quite on purpose. We invest in companies at the 0 stage. So when there's just an idea, most VCs will only get involved post-revenue, maybe 1 million ARR. And then, of course, like farther along in the growth pipeline. But we are at that 0 stage. So right when a founder has an idea is when we want to get involved. We build and invest in these companies, and we are looking for partnerships with our co-founders so that we can...
Yeah, we're not here just for board seats.
We're not here for board seats at all. I think that's a big differentiator between Cloudbreak and many other VCs. We actually look to be involved on a day-to-day basis with our companies. We see our co-founders as partners, and we see ourselves as partners. And we are day-to-day management and team building that company, building the product. We have lots of in-house resources and from a dev team, sales and operations expertise. And so I think that the expertise that we have, the in-house resources, experience, all sets us apart.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow, that is extremely different from most venture capital firms and their business models that I've heard before, and kind of done business with before personally. And from my experience, I've been a part of startups from ground zero, and I've also been a part of joined companies shortly after starting up. When they're not at 0 stage, but we're looking at 1 or 2 on a 10 scale, and then that have an established kind of reputation and a direction already. And let me tell you, it is way easier to kind of go from 2 to 4 than it is to go from 0 to 2. And so I'm just curious, like, from a risk standpoint, how do you feel like you've prepared yourself to take on these challenges? Because I know there is like a lot of risk associated with that 0 stage. And so personally, like, how do you feel like you've prepared yourself to tackle that challenge?
Most VCs are not venture studios because that 0 stage is the riskiest stage. And you de-risk a lot once you get to product market fit, that 1 or 2 that you were talking about. So Mark and I had this conversation when he sold his first company back a year ago, January 2020. And I had been involved in investing prior to that time. Mark had started his company, exited his company at that point. And so we felt like we were uniquely positioned with this investing experience and with founding experience to actually play in that riskiest area right there, and to de-risk it for everyone involved, for us as investors and for our co-founders, as the risk that they take on in starting any kind of venture.
It's really, if you think about any healthy ecosystem, there's always a food chain involved. And Houston has a really robust tech scene, especially on the top end. Maybe at the venture capital, we've got a lot of private equity offices. We've got a lot of great companies and tech companies that have started here and been successful here. Probably most notably with the blinds.com that was acquired by Home Depot and several others up and down.
Yeah.
But I think where Houston is lacking support, or maybe the most support, is really at this: how do you get a good idea from start to something you can sell? And we feel like my experience at Q and Lauren's experience investing in seed stage VC is most focused on that spot.
Right. And you talked about Q a little bit. I know that was kind of your first kind of get go from zero to that zero to stage. And what was kind of Lauren's involvement a little bit, if you don't mind speaking to that too?
Well, my wife is my partner in all things. And I think that we have consciously made the decision to have a really complicated life. We have a bunch of kids. We have to talk about and schedule and plan and prioritize. And you really, when you boil it down, it's all the same functions that a company performs. And Lauren, in the early days of Q, one of the most common kind of feelings in starting a company early on is that trough of sorrow. And, when you are alone, you feel isolated a lot. You feel like you're constantly spinning your wheels. You get stuck, and it takes more than, oh, it'll be fine, like you'll figure it out kind of encouragement, but somebody that actually really understands what you're looking at and can help you come up with next steps and can help you cool down after a tense meeting, or and that requires more than just platitudes. It requires real connection and understanding, and she did that really well. And that's why after selling Q, thinking about what I wanted to do, I really wanted to work with her. I had to recruit her, and it took a couple of tries.
The first time he asked, my answer was no. And then the second, and the third.
I think there may have been some adjectives there. We're just going to leave. We're just going to leave that alone.
Yeah. Very cool. It's definitely an endeavor to go in a business partnership with your life partner. And I'm glad that I'm sure it took some convincing to work with you.
It took some convincing, but at the end of the day, I'm really excited. We've talked about before, as Mark just mentioned, like we're life partners. We've run a family together, but we've never worked together. We've always had separate careers, which is interesting because, as all of our closest friends and families know, we are very career focused and have always been that way, ambitious, and have a lot of desires for where we see ourselves in the future.
We're both firstborn children, slightly type A.
And so for us to have not worked together in an area which is an area that's so important to each of us personally, puts us in a vulnerable position, because now we're working together as a couple in an area that is really important to both of us, but has also, I think, actually enabled us to have a closer relationship and to have more understanding with each other.
Okay, so we've talked about going from 0 to 1. We talked about your business model, and we've talked about how you guys work well together. Now what I want to do is hear about the actual process itself, and like there's so many variables that come into play when you are managing that risk from going from that 0 to 1. And so tell me a little bit about your process and how you feel like you can effectively tackle that risk management style of going from 0 to 1.
We have a dartboard in the office. Just kidding.
Mark and I generally are of the personalities that we love risk. We're not risk averse in any way. In many ways, we seek out risk, because with risk there's challenge, there's mental challenge, and there's also obviously greater reward. But with that, obviously risks cannot just be followed blindly. It needs to be thought through really carefully and proactively. And so we have worked over the course of our lives and careers to figure out how to manage risk in a way that works best for us. And we think that through those different lessons that we've learned, that we have come to a place where we can really well manage the risk that we're engaging in. Yeah. At the 0 stage, we are engaging with multiple companies at the riskiest stage, which people think is crazy, but we think plays perfectly to our skill set and to the knowledge that we have and the people that we have surrounded ourselves and the resources that we have surrounded our company with. And so we're well positioned to handle that risk, to think through that risk, and it's something that we really enjoy.
I think it's maybe restating what you said. You can design and control for that risk. Mm-hmm. I think going from 0 to 1 is such a discrete stage that it really deserves to be designed and controlled for. So as we selected partners, as we hired individuals, we wanted to make sure that we had this laser focus on what that looks like. And we get a benefit from repeating that stage with multiple investments.
Absolutely.
So we're 3 investments in at this point. We've got a large pipeline of new ideas that we're constantly filtering through and getting excited about and doing due diligence on. And each one of those exercises is actually kind of like back informing and maybe helping us balance and weight the different variables in some of the other portfolio investments.
It's very efficient, really, if you think about it, for a startup, a founder to have an idea, to decide to go and pursue a startup, and then to go through all of the different decisions and steps that are necessary to bring that to revenue and then to scale and to be ultimately as successful as they want to be. There are so many decisions, so many lessons that you have to learn, from what it even means to develop a product, how you go about doing that to develop a solid, useful product, scalable product. Then you have to make your first sale. You have to hire a sales team. You have to run operations. Legal,
not even to mention like the boring
marketing
stuff like accounting, and whether you have a C corp or an LLC, or if you've got
to expect a first time founder to go through that whole process every single time. That is the reason why the common number 90% of startups fail, is because there's not support for someone. So we see that process is highly inefficient. We feel like we have figured out ways to standardize that process in a way that is still flexible enough for every single founder and company that comes in to our portfolio and into our partnership, but enables a founder to take their idea and their domain expertise, partner with us and our development expertise, our sales operations.
They really get a pretty fully staffed company right off the bat,
and a team. I think one thing that's been really surprising to us is that we thought we would be primarily working with first-time founders, and that's been true. 2 of our 3 portfolio companies are with first-time founders. However, 1 is not. And then our pipeline, we have a very full pipeline of people and ideas that we're considering partnership with right now, and they are not first-time founders. A lot are serial entrepreneurs, and I've spent some time trying to figure out why that is. And I think it's because of the team and partnership aspect. People who have been first-time founders realize how important it is, how hard it is, how necessary it is to have a solid team around you, how hard it is to track down these resources that we have already that we're very proud of. And so I think we are able to offer both to first-time founders and serial entrepreneurs a lot, and a partnership is at the end of the day what we're offering, and so it's been really fun.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. And when I was starting my first business, I had the opportunity to do it on my own or with a few partners that had different skill sets, and going that route made my life way easier as a founder. So
right.
I will definitely agree with that, and that's really impressive. And it sounds like your experiences and collectively and individually, Lauren, that you're kind of tailor-made to kind of run a company that launches companies. And you spoke a little bit about your current projects, but I want to hear more. Like specifically, what are some of the current projects you guys are working on? And then at the same time, which one are you kind of most excited about? I mean, if you have all these cool companies that you are launching, you got to be a little bit, everyone loves their kids, but at some point, one of your kids is usually your favorite at any given moment, depending on what's happening. But
we have no experience with this question because we don't have enough kids.
So
my favorite changes by the hour.
Yeah. No, but tell me, what are some of the projects you're working on? I'm curious.
We have 3 portfolio companies. Cloudbreak founded, you have to keep in mind, just a year ago, February 2020.
But really, I think
we brought on
April, May is when we really kind of exist in this kind of iteration.
Absolutely. So we began February, but that was just as Houston and the country was shutting down for quarantine and coronavirus epidemic and whatnot. And so we launched in the midst of all of that and started out as a remote first company, built out an initial small team, and then have grown since then. So really, as Mark was saying, if you think we're less than a year old in terms of like our full current operations stage. And in that time, we have signed 3 partnership agreements. We have 3 portfolio companies that we have begun and are in various stages of development with. We have a process for how we go through development. We have a fantastic development team and a chief product officer who really knows his product very well, knows how to manage that and how to build product that is will solve the problems of the client that we are looking for, which makes it a really easy sale at that point. And so our first company, I don't know if I've mentioned at this point, we are industry agnostic in terms of which partners or which products we built. And so we have our first product that is farthest along is in commercial construction. It's a pre-construction estimating tool.
Specifically to replace your bid leveling spreadsheets.
Exactly. And our second is a commercial real estate solution. And then our third is for offshore logistics. And all of these are at the heart of it, as Mark just alluded to. All of these are current legacy workflows that are still done in Excel, by phone, by text message, email, lots of just old ways of doing things. And yet these are workflows that are very sensitive,
critical,
and business critical. And so we are replacing those and automating them, streamlining them to reduce error, to reduce expense and whatnot. So we have a lot more ideas in the pipeline right now. And we are looking at a broad range of different ideas. One I'm particularly excited about is a behavioral health management platform. But we've also are currently evaluating some in the ESG space. One of Mark's favorites is, or current promotes is exotic cars.
I do get excited about things on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
But I think it's really just about, like, it really starts with the people.
Yeah.
When we work and discuss with a co-founder, how fast are they wanting to run? What are they looking at?
Yeah.
How can we best support them? Is it just, hey, we'll start with some suggestions for what you might start, and then after that, do we transition more into, okay, well, what does it look like to work together? I take phone calls all the time that are more about, well, what are you looking at? Because if the Houston startup scene becomes crowded, that actually, what that does is it actually lifts the entire ecosystem up almost simultaneously. And
we think currently the Houston startup scene is crowded, or approaching crowded, on capital. There's a lot of capital in Houston. And our goal is to feed that capital healthy, scalable companies. We really want to support founders as they're going from idea to first revenue to scale, so that we can continue have a healthy pipeline for,
or even other investors. Like if you are intrigued by what we're doing and want to ask us questions, like, we would love to share notes and help you think through if that's a fit for you, because ultimately the more companies we get to start here in Houston that have a good base, that can raise money, it really elevates the entire scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know if I'm listening to this right now, I'm thinking about my current workflow and how I was like, how can I expedite this workflow? How can I increase in the productivity around here?
Absolutely.
And
Houston is a great city to be located in.
More spreadsheets per capita than any city in the country.
But it's so true. We have so many different industries, from healthcare to space to oil and gas, logistics. We have maritime. And a number of others. There are
legacy
so many
tech companies. We've got HP, obviously, and lots of Fortune 500s.
Absolutely.
We're
so there's a lot of legacy workflows that we are looking to replace. And so I think every single Houstonian has access to some special knowledge about a workflow that can be streamlined.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm hearing about this and I'm like, okay, I have this workflow. Like, how do I reach out to you guys? What's the best way to communicate with Lauren Bahorich?
Both of us, all of us, are very open to communication, and we are taking as many meetings as we can. Whether or not partnership with Cloudbreak is what is in anyone, if that's in your interest or not, we are here for a conversation and a talk through and just ideas or coffee or
email is probably best to reach out to us. Mark and Lauren at cloudbreakenterprises.com.
Well, separately. Mark at cloudbreakenterprises.com.
We should make a Mark and Lauren.
No, we should absolutely not. Lauren at cloudbreakenterprises.com.
There's chemistry, but let's still keep it professional.
We finish each other's sandwiches.
That I love the crickets after that
joke. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Anyone is welcome to email us. Lauren at cloudbreakenterprises.com or Mark at cloudbreakenterprises.com.
Great. True. Great.
Well, John, I really appreciate your coming on board to talk with us and help me interview my wife as a disinterested third party, of course. But it is, I think, really exciting for us as we enter a good stage of commerciality for Cloudbreak and hopefully some early commercial wins for some of our portfolio companies coming up. We're really excited about this next year. Guys, I really appreciate your time listening to Risk Profile. My name is Mark, and please give us some feedback, leave a review, send us an email, maybe introducing us to a guest you think should be on the show, and let us know, like, how can we help you? Mark at riskprofile.us, Lauren at cloudbreakenterprises.com. Please share our social channels, and let's go be someone.